Well, we're back working on the 1066 motor today. We got the new pistons and sleeves here. We got the motor all ready in the last video. All I gotta do to these sleeves and pistons, they're already pre-assembled. And I gotta slide them up, take the pin out, and put the correct rod in it, and then install the piston into the motor and connect the rod to the crankshaft. This is how the new sleeve and pistons come to me. Like I said, they're pre-assembled, and actually it voids the warranty if you take them out of the sleeve. So I gotta slide them up, put that rod on. These are the rods, and they're actually number specific to the motor. So at the front of the motor would be number 1, and count your way down going to the back to be number 6. So I'm gotta get number 3 for this sleeve and piston. And these rods I had redone, just checked around, and new bushings in the bottom to match the new pins of the new pistons. This is the bearing for the rod that rides on the crankshaft. It's just a somewhat thin metal alloy that can take multiple rotations and not wear too bad, but honestly it just depends on the oil you have on it. I was told once by a wise man that if it doesn't ride on a film oil, it will die. And here's assembly lube. It's best thing to put on when you're putting something together and when it's not going to have oil pressure for a while, because it won't leak down like normal oil will. It'll stay thick on there, and it's not going to hurt the motor whenever it gets fired up for the first time.
It's not the pressure.
This motor is a wet sleeve motor, so there's going to be coolant around this sleeve the whole entire time to help cool it better. These are just the O-rings that keep the coolant in and the oil out. Sorry, Jason did this last time and he wouldn't let me touch my own pistons. You know what, AJ? You're doing such a good job. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. Here's a helpful tip. Whenever you put an O-ring on anything, it's good to stick something under it and go around it 3 times like I'm doing here, because when you roll it on, it could be twisted, and whenever you try to install it in the thing when it's twisted, it'll end up cutting it. You got twisted. Liquid on there. Just on that. Bolts on it, flip it over, and I'll show you on it. The O-rings I showed putting on the sleeves earlier, they'll have a natural push up just by what they are, so these bolts just hold the sleeve down so they don't pop out. What I did here before I took it back off after I torqued it is I put down this thin piece of plastic called plastic gauge, and this is the sheet to measure it. It was just essentially telling me how much clearance I have in there, and what the clearance means is how much oil it can fit in there. You don't want too big of a clearance, because then you'll have no oil pressure and it'll just gush out and you won't get enough oil to everything else. You don't want too little, because then it won't have enough oil in there to lubricate the crankshaft and bearings on the rods. So after I measured that and made sure it was all good, I just put some more assembly lube, put it together, and then I'll rotate the engine around to make sure that it still spins, because if we were to put one on and it didn't spin immediately after, then we could take it off and fix it, which we had an issue with one of those, but we got it fixed. But if I were to put them just all on right now and then try to spin it after, I wouldn't know which one was causing the issue. Got the seal driver kit here. I'm going to knock my new freeze plugs in. These are all freeze plugs holes here. It's supposed to stop if the coolant freezes in it with the clear water. It'll pop out instead of cracking the block. Oh, reinforcing it. Oh. We're testing the injectors here for a couple things to make sure they're good before we put them back in the new rebuilt motor. We test for a pop-off pressure test, make sure it's all good. We test for a leak-down test, make sure it's not leaking out of the end or the fitting, and then we test for a chatter test. And we got to make sure that all of them work good before we put it back in the motor, because it could cause an issue and ruin the motor. This is the rebuild kit with all my new seals. This is one of the most important parts of the motor. It's the rear main seal, and you just essentially don't want to get in too far or too little because it'll leak oil constantly until you take it back out to fix it. It's not too hard to fix, not the end of the world if it's leaking, but it's not bad to get it right the first time. Well, we pretty much got everything buttoned up on the front. There's the oil pump right there. It's new. That's the most important thing of the motor because it keeps everything lubed and cleaned up. And we'll run it here by putting the water pump on. It keeps the motor cool so it doesn't overheat and melt down. But that'll be the end of this video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. See you in the next one.